cargoes, circa 800,000 metric tons of gasoline and gas oil, equivalent to 30% of national consumption, have so far been imported. The G40 program has significantly contributed to the stabilization of the Cedi dollar exchange rate, 17 cedis to the dollar in November 2022 to 12 cedis to the dollar in November 2023, leading to a reduction in the export price of diesel from 23 cedis per litre, Mr. Speaker, to 12 cedis per litre today. Mr. Speaker, I'll now update the House on the performance of our macroeconomic indicators. Real GDP growth averaged 3.2% in the first half of 2023, compared to 2.9% in the same period in 2022, signaling a strong rebound. Robust growth in services averaged 6.3%, and agriculture also averaged 6.2%. Sectors were the key drivers. It is instructive to note average growth of 3.2% for the first two quarters of 2023 is higher than 2023 revised growth target of 1.5%. Price developments indicate that inflation is on a declining path in response to ongoing fiscal consolidation, appropriate tightening of monetary policy, and relative stability in the exchange rate. Headline inflation declined by over 16 percentage points from 34.1% in December 2022 to 38.1% in September 2023 and 35.2% as of October 2023. The Cedi has stabilized against the US dollar since early 2023. With a year-to-date, Mr. Speaker, a year-to-date cumulative depreciation of 25% compared to 54% in 2022. Specifically, Mr. Speaker, the Cedi has only depreciated by 6.4% on cumulative basis since February 2023, compared to, Mr. Speaker, 53.9% over the same period in 2022. The stability of the Cedi largely reflects the positive impact from the restoration of economic activity, including robust economic growth, improvement in the current account position, improvement in forex liquidity following the IMF ECF inflows, Bank of Ghana's domestic gold purchase program, reduced speculative forex demand as market confidence rebounds. Gross international reserves as of September 2023 stood at 5 billion, 2.3 months import cover, compared to 6.3 billion, 2.7 months import cover at the end of 2022, but expecting only a 0.8 months at mid-year when we stood here to pronounce where we were heading to. We are yet, Mr. Speaker, to reflect IMF, World Bank, and Cocoa Bank indications of approximately $2 billion by year-end. The current account turned positive at 1.1% of GDP at end June 2023, a monumental turnaround from the deficit of 2.1% of GDP at end December 2022. Likewise, the trade balance improved to a surplus of 2.6% of GDP as of end August 2023, from 0.7% of GDP surplus at end December 2022. Though interest rates moderated from December 2022 to the first quarter 2023, they picked up again as T-bills remain the key debt instrument in the debt market after the DDEP. For instance, the 91-day Treasury declined from 35.5% in December 2022 to 18.5% in March 2023, but increased to 29.8% as of Monday, 13th November 2023. The overall budget deficit on commitment basis as of end August 2023 was a deficit of 3.0% of GDP, outperforming the targeted deficit of 4.6% of GDP. The outturn largely reflects improvements in revenue mobilization and slower execution of expenditure. The corresponding primary balance on commitment basis was a deficit of 0.7% of GDP, also outperforming the target surplus of 0.9% of GDP. Public debt accumulation has slowed down significantly as government continued to consolidate its public finances and also reflects the impact of the domestic debt exchange program and the ongoing external debt restructuring. Total public debt has declined from 73.1% of GDP at the end of 2022, Mr. Speaker, to 66.4% of GDP as at September 2023. The completion of external debt restructuring is expected to further improve Ghana's debt to GDP ratio. Mr. Speaker, the 2023 fiscal framework was revised during the 2023 mid-year fiscal policy review to reflect updated macro-fiscal developments and align with the fiscal adjustment path under the IMF-supported PC-PEG path. Mr. Speaker, the fiscal performance for the first 8 months of the year using provisional data shows significant progress towards a stronger fiscal consolidation. More specifically, Mr. Speaker, total revenue and grants was 71.9 billion, 9.3% of GDP, 2.8% lower than the program target of 82.2 billion, 9.6% of GDP. Total expenditure commitment was 104.6 billion, 12.2% of GDP, 14.1% lower than the target of 121.8 billion, 14.2% of GDP. Primary expenditure commitment was 84.7 billion, 9.9% of GDP, 6.0% lower than the target of 90.1 billion, 10.5% of GDP. Primary balance commitment was a deficit of 5.5 billion, or 0.7% of GDP, compared to the target deficit of 7.9 billion, 0.9% of GDP. Overall fiscal balance commitment was a deficit of 25.4 billion, 3% of GDP, compared to target deficit of 39.6 billion, or 4.6% of GDP. And overall fiscal balance cash was a deficit of 26.1 billion, 3% of GDP, compared to the target deficit of 44.6 billion, 5.2% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, we are doing much better than predicted. Mr. Speaker, based on the overall macroeconomic objectives and the medium-term targets, the following macroeconomic targets are set for the 2024 fiscal year. Overall real GDP growth of at least 2.8%, non-oil real GDP growth of at least 2.1%, end period inflation rate of 5.0%, primary balance on commitment basis of a surplus of 0.5% of GDP, and gross international reserve to cover not less than 3 months of imports.